there's no doubt that locating and fishing brush piles is an awesome pattern to exploit any time throughout the year. But there may not be a better time of year to fish and take advantage of brush piles than during the fall months into the early winter season. You know, brush piles offer so many different cover and security features and forage features for the bass that, you know, it just makes sense that anytime you're out there fishing to try to find and locate a few brush piles, whether they're shallow ones, medium depth ones, or deep brush piles, and rotate through them and fish during the course of the day. Finding brush piles can be a little bit of a tedious process depending upon, you know, what type of lake you live on and, you know, how familiar you are with the geography. If you happen to live on a lake that, you know, they do a wintertime drawdown like the lake that I live on, finding brush piles can be pretty easy because there you just get to idle around and, you know, look on the bank and see where there might be some signs of brush piles either right up on the bank or just, you know, barely into the surface of the water. And more than likely there's more brush piles out deeper from those ones that you can visibly see. So that's an easy way to, you know, to find them. Just idle around and start looking and, you know, fish around and see if you can find some brush piles that are out in a little bit deeper water. The more complicated process obviously is, you know, getting your lake map out and you know, just spending hours and driving around and, you know, looking at points, looking in pockets, looking at, you know, likely places where there might be some brush piles, and you know, triangulate that those spots once you find them on your fish finder, and make sure you have a clear picture of where they are, and then save them, you know, GPS them and save them so you can come back and fish them later. But regardless of what way you actually go and go about finding brush piles, one of the easiest ways to fish them, and actually finding them is the hard part. Fishing them is the easy part. I go simple. I really rely on simple tactics for fishing brush piles once the finding has ended and the fishing begins. And one of my favorite baits is absolutely a Kut Tail worm from Gary Yamamoto Custom Baits. And, you know, the Kut Tail comes in a variety of different sizes, from, you know, little bitty finesse baits all the way up to big giant, you know, 10-inch baits. And they have a brand new bait that's really becoming a favorite of mine for targeting brush piles, and it's the 7GL 7 3/4 inch Kut Tail worm. And you'll notice that one thing about this worm is that it's fairly meaty and thick up on the top of the worm, and I like that when I'm targeting brush piles because, you know, you get a little bit more longevity out of your bait. You don't tear them up coming through that brush pile or that heavy cover, and it keeps the worm on the hook a little bit better too, as opposed to a real thin soft worm that will kind of ball up a little bit. That meaty front of this worm is really effective for fishing brush piles, and it's really becoming a favorite of mine. Now you can, with any other Kut Tail worm too, you can rig these the same way, and it's just a really simple Texas rig, 4.0 or 5.0 worm hook with, you know, a minimum, I would say, of 1/4 ounce slip sinker. I really like a 3/8 tungsten sinker a lot of times because, you know, it helps keep the bait in the brush, and it also helps me, at times you will get stuck in the brush. It helps having that little bit heavier weight, 3/8 ounce or maybe even up to a 1/2 ounce, will actually dislodge your bait a whole lot easier than a lighter weight will. So you can, you know, shake your rod tip around and pop that bait freely with 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce weight, and it lets you keep the bait in the strike zone a whole lot longer too. So a couple, you know, considerations when you're fishing that Kut Tail in and around the brush: 3/8 weight, 4.0 or 5.0 wide gap hook, because this 7GL worm is a bit thicker in the front, and you know, you don't want that plastic balling up on your hook when you go and make your hook set. So use a wide gap hook and you'll get better penetration there as well. And rod, 7-foot medium heavy action, 14-pound test minimum fluorocarbon line, maybe up to about 17-pound test. Pretty straightforward, you know, worm and gear. You know, your traditional, you know, 7-foot medium heavy rod with some 14 or 17-pound test fluorocarbon line. bait casting reel, and just get yourself a variety of worms and Texas rigs and get out there and go fish. And what thing I like to do too is rotate around these brush piles. I may find some in shallow water, I may find some in medium depth water, and I may find some in deep water. And you know, all throughout the fall you can kind of manage those and you know, rotate around, you know, which ones are best. Some days the shallow ones might be good, some days the medium, you know, depth ones might be good, and other times the real deep ones will be good. But if you find enough brush piles and you have enough Gary Yamamoto Custom Baits 7GL Kut Tails, you'll be able to fish the entire fall and go rotate through all these great brush piles that you found, spend all this time finding. Get out there and go fish, and try the new 7GL Kut Tail from Gary Yamamoto Custom Baits. I'm Mike DelVisco, and I'll see you on the water.